This may come as a big shock to all of you, but in my 20+ years of constantly collecting and painting Warhammer, I have never finished painting an army. Always change my mind, I always pick up different armies. Well, today, that is gonna change. I'm going to finish my first ever 2,000+ point Warhammer army that's all painted the same and can be played in an edition. It's tabletop time. Which army? My Twilight Sentinels, my Stormcast Eternals army that I started on the channel. And it's pretty clear that Games Workshop knows I love Stormcast Eternals because they sent us all the new releases. So my army is almost finished. There's actually only 2 things I need to do before I'm happy with it. And number 1 has been waiting for this amazing angel model. My Twilight Sentinels are known for my conversions that are Diablo inspired, where I swap all the heads for hoods and make them look super moody. And this character will make a fantastic centerpiece. But there is another centerpiece that I do not want to get left behind. The old Dave would abandon older models that I've painted, but I have a Lord Celestin on Stardrake, which I've shown on the channel that needs to be modified. I'm gonna do some conversions and replace the mount so I can bring that old Stormcast in line with the new designs. So I guess the big question is, why haven't I actually painted a full Warhammer army if I've been doing this my whole life? Like, what kind of poser am I, right? Well, my problem isn't that I don't paint models and don't collect models. It's that I change my mind too much. And as I get better, I want to change my paint schemes, paint new models, bounce between different projects, and the end result is that effectively I have dozens of half-finished armies. By the time I bounce back, I kind of decide that I don't like how the original was painted. A really good example of this on the channel is my Chaos Space Marines, which even on this YouTube channel, there are 3 different iterations of how I've painted it. But with this army, my Twilight Sentinels, things have been a little bit different. And a little bit of that is that I actually started this army relatively recently. I started it when the last edition of Age of Sigmar came out, so 3 years ago. Primarily, I've got to say I'm also more of a hobbyer, converter, and absolute fanatic for the lore and universe. I'm a big fan of that. So having armies to play on the tabletop has always been a secondary priority. But I do have to say, Age of Sigmar I don't have the same problem with, and I found that playing games of AOS from 3rd edition onwards has been really fun. So I think that's also helped. Having a goal to build an army and actually play games makes me more inspired to finish my own. It also helps that the entire new Stormcast Eternal range is, well, pretty gorgeous. There's a few exceptions in the non-discontinued models in the 1st and 2nd ranges, notably the Dragon Corgis, as we call them, basically the Dracoths. Not a fan. They're very monopose and very chunky. But beyond that, the range is pretty gorgeous. So I'm gonna start making some of these conversions, and to do that, well, I need to cut out and build Taunus. I keep calling him Taunus the Redeemed. He also makes a Knight Azeroth with the simple swap of a single sword and head. Barely even worth calling this a multi-part kit. In fact, I plan on using the model interchangeably, and I'm giving it the spear regardless because it's so cool. It reminds me of Imperius's spear from Diablo. So yeah, I'm gonna start assembling this kit, but I'm not gonna glue lots of elements. There's some ideas I have for conversions. So the model's assembled, and with my Stormcast Eternals, my Twilight Sentinels, the hoods are a really important part of making them look super mysterious and cool, and, well, a bit like Diablo. So I've got to grab some hoods, and there is the perfect source for hoods right here. That's right, Dark Angels. So I'm gonna try the Deathwing Knights, but I have a feeling Asmodee's fancy hood might be the one I go for. Now, I do like to use non-destructive conversion. That way, if you've got friends who collect Dark Angels, you can just ask for their spare heads, or you can buy bits online. Asmodee does have 2 head options, so I'm okay with using the hooded head if it looks good. Let's find out. So I've tested the fit, and look, no shock to anyone. Asmodee's hood looks way better. It's super baggy, it's gonna require a bunch more work, but it fits in with the amount of cloth the character has. I love the folds, I love the ripples, I love the texture. The Deathwing Knights one don't quite have that. And with a character like this, we want that dynamic element. So Asmodee, say goodbye to your very nice hooded head. At least you've still got an unhooded head for later. But it's time for me to cut out and convert, carve down, and kind of make this fit so the folds of the chin fit over the neck thing. I don't know what that's called, but I'm gonna do it. All right, so the head is on, and I think this is looking pretty fantastic, but I can't finish this conversion without destroying another expensive Games Workshop Space Marine kit. Yes, we've abused the Dark Angels by taking one of Asmodee's heads. It's time to rob from another angel. That's right, we've got the Sanguinor here that Games Workshop sent us. It actually is a really nice mini. I like it very much, but I'm going to be focusing on the coolest angels in Warhammer right now, and that is clearly my Knight Azeroth. So I'm going to be borrowing your Halo. It's not really borrowing, I'm not giving it back. I'm really excited about how my Taunus the Redeemed has turned out, but there was another model. Remember I mentioned that I wanted to salvage one of the first Stormcast Eternals I painted? One I didn't paint on the channel? Well, it's time to do that, but it isn't here, so I gotta go to my shop to go grab it.
Okay, so Jen's driving. I get to be a passenger.
Princess.
All right, here I am, the old hobby store, and in the cabinet has been my Stardrake. And I love this model. However, the little guy on top is now one of the first generation Stormcast Eternal, and they haven't aged too well, but I'm really happy with the paint job of my Stardrake, so I do want to salvage this. So I'm going to see what I can find from all these new kits and basically make a new Lord Celestin to ride atop this Stardrake. I might even salvage some parts of it too. I've grabbed a few other bits and bobs here too that I'm going to take back to the studio. A while ago, the shelving cabinet actually broke, and when that happened, shelves collapsed and destroyed a whole bunch of models, including my original Knight Azeroth, which I thought would be really cool. It was a conversion I did. So I'm going to take that all back to the studio. We'll have a proper look at it. So I think when we look at the 3 generations of Knight Azeroths, I'll say the official release version, my conversion, and the newest one, it becomes really evident just how much has changed with the Stormcast's design philosophy. Originally, all the Stormcasts, including the Azeroths, who were supposed to fly magnificently across the sky, were basically bricks. They're as wide as they are tall. Their armor plates look like they would clash into each other as they walk. Our editor Vaughn, when looking at these pictures, said they look like dwarves in armor, so their proportions were ridiculous. When the females started coming around in the second wave of Stormcast Eternals, you could see they were almost trying to wind back these proportions, but ultimately it led to this crazy amount of sexual dimorphism. The females have massively defined abs, and really large thighs compared to the rest of their body, and while overall I actually think the proportions of all of their armor looks a lot better than the men, they do look a bit odd beside them. They look really tiny, which is strange for massively clad reforged warriors. And now we come to the latest one. We've got lots of little changes, lots of changes in kind of like the realistic aspects. They look a lot less like Sigmarines or Age of Sigmar's answer to Space Marines, and they look a lot more like fantasy paladins. They've got layered armor, chainmail suits, far more functional elements to their war gear. And while overall design has come a long way, it actually isn't that long ago that the original Stormcast came out. I'm still really happy with my design for my female Knight Azeroth. I think it's really neat. And you know what? If I do a bit of a rebasing, she might even survive to see battlefields if I ever want to field Taunus and an Azeroth at the same time. But that original one, yeah, not the biggest fan. But now it's time to move on to the next winged model, which is replacing the rider for my Lord Celestin on Stardrake. And one feature of that rider that I have to maintain is the wings. Why would you have wings on a dragon, you say? Well, here's my point. The dragons in Age of Sigmar are intelligent, and the relationships they have with their riders are more akin to best friendships over eternal life than anything else. So to treat your mount like a beast of burden is kind of bizarre. Also, the guy has a really short little sword. I don't know what he's doing with that. And I think that if you can equip a backpack from your arsenal like prosecutors can and fly around, why would your mounted flying cavalry not have them? It's basically a parachute. It means if you get separated from your mount, you can still fight, you can rejoin them in the air, and you can do cool aerial acrobatic fighting, and that's just awesome. So I put prosecutor wings on my mounted flying units. Fight me, and you should all do it too. Oh, okay, I massively underestimated the amount of work converting this Lord Celestin on Stardrake was going to be. I really didn't want to destroy the legs on the knights, the Paladors, the Stormstrike Paladors. I like this kit and might want to make a squad of them one day.
So I was just like, nah, I can't take their legs because then I can't build the riders. So I'm making this reclusian. It's way too much work. It's like 7 o'clock. It's dinner time. So I gotta go, but I'm gonna take him home because I gotta do some green stuff. And if it doesn't dry by tomorrow, I won't be able to use it. So yeah, I'm just gonna take it home, take some pictures, and we'll show you what I did tomorrow.
I spent a little bit of time last night working on this guy, and I have to say, I almost wish I knew how complicated it would be to do that before I started this project, because honestly, I think that would have probably made a more intricate and better video, but I actually have so many steps of green stuff and not enough time in the schedule to finish that guy. That was always a little addendum to this video, so I hope you like the little conversions I've done to it. So I used the core body of a reclusian, and funnily enough, it was actually one from Skaven Tide. I'm not big into the heavy infantry aesthetic of the Stormcast. I think the models look amazing, but my army's all gonna be like flying cavalry and prosecutors. So I didn't need that many of those reclusians, so I turned one of those into my Lord Celestin. I also managed to salvage the shield. Unfortunately, the way the hand worked, I couldn't salvage the sword off the original model, but I have used one of the spears from the Stardrake kit. I still had the bits lying around. I've also used some wings from the prosecutors from the new edition because, as I said, always got to put wings on my guys. And there is a lot of green stuffing to do. One comment I'll make, kit bashing is so much harder these days because everything is sculpted onto itself and there are like no spare bits. I had to go through maybe about 15 Stormcast kits, all the new stuff they released, as well as my old boxes lying around before I could even find a dagger that was separate to cover up some of the damage on the front of this model. So look, it looks really cool. I'm really happy with it. That's where we're gonna leave it, and I'm gonna move on and start painting my Turnus the Redeemed. Time to paint my Knight Azeroth, and that means spray time, and it is October, so it's time for a little spook. Yeah, what a ripoff. $48, and the price has gone up since then. But unfortunately, I'm stuck using this Retributor Armor Spray because I started painting my army with it, and it is a different shade to the rest of the Retributor Armor. So when the can runs out, I'm so hopeful that other Retributor Armor cans are the same gold. Otherwise, my army's gonna look different. It's gonna piss me off, but there's still a little bit in the can. So we're gonna spray them gold and then get to painting. It is the following week, in fact. I left the model over the weekend and it's time to move on with the paint job. The next thing that needs to be done is basically painting from the inside out. So I always prefer to paint the easiest, largest area where simple techniques can save a bunch of time first. Let's do it. So for the metallic steps, a fantastic tip for you all at home is to find the area of the model that is the largest surface area and work out an efficient technique for painting it. And on my Stormcast Eternals, that's the gold. I can get a fantastic effect with these beautiful dry brushing steps and then a final line highlight of Stormhost Silver, which makes this wonderful gold. Now, this makes a massive mess of the entire model. So obviously you can't do it after. So you do this first. If you're painting Space Marines, do this first on your power armor, worry about the details later. So the first step, the biggest step, the one you can make the most impact with the most efficient techniques, and then we're moving on. And that's exactly what I've done. With the metallic areas done on my model, I can move on to the fabric elements. And these fabric elements are something I change a little bit to my army, and one small change I made between 3rd edition and 4th edition is I actually started injecting a lot more magenta into it. I found that the cloth, the purple, was quite cold in tone, and I've brought this warmth into it through the use of Screamer Pink. I really like this effect that I put down before I do any of the Galaxy freehand, which I'll actually do at the very end, as it just helps the element of the model pop. For the cloak, it's cream gradients with lots of rough, stipply blends. I like this part of the Stormcast to feel like it's a canvasy fabric, a really heavy woven, weather-beaten fabric. And by using really rough blending techniques, almost stippling them on, it creates this effect. After I complete that, I can, of course, move on to painting those scrolls and parchments. Another change I've made while I've been painting my Stormcast Eternals since the last time you've seen them is I've changed the handle. Initially, and even in my last painting video, when Skaven Tide dropped, I was painting the handles purple. But I found this washed away and kind of didn't add anything exciting. Not only was it a similar color to the purple metallics I used for the blade, but it was also kind of similar to the colder purples of the robes, and it just didn't add anything. So instead of that, I've actually gone for a burgundy, and I'm highlighting that up in some burnt Caucasian skin tones. So we're talking about burnt flesh from scale 75 or Cadian flesh tone from Citadel Bugman's glow up to Cadian flesh tone. That's the kind of thing here. And I actually think it looks really good, and it stands out as this nice burgundy hand wrap, which ties beautifully with the purple spear tips and then also bounces off the cloaks and robes. So it's fine to keep reviewing little parts of your paint scheme. I actually went back and repainted the handles on my previous models, so everything matches. It's fantastic. It's looking really good. We are entering the home stretch now, which means I finally have to pay some attention to those wings. And I'm gonna paint them with a wonderful gradient. We're gonna go from a light blue mid-tone to a really bright white towards where the wings emanate from that like mechanical backpack. And then it's gonna get a little bit darker, a little bit more burnt and deeper into the blues towards the end where the flame is flicking away from the character. Once I've done those wings, I can then paint the little elements on the wings, like the purple metallic sections I didn't paint before because there's, you know, dry brushing and messy steps with the other paint. And then I have the absolute last finishing touches on the model itself, and that means highlighting all of the black fabric, painting the glow coming out of the lantern, and then lastly, we're going to have to do that like galaxy effect on my robes. And then the model itself will be finished.
Those wings. I just don't know what blue I used because I didn't actually say in the video. A huge thank you to all of our patrons who have been supporting us through this time. If you'd like to join up to our Patreon, we have some awesome perks. We have a monthly mini review for our mini club tier members. We have a private Discord where we chat with all of our community. And there's also now a couple of extended cuts. And when we do have videos that have worthy footage that can be added back in that maybe isn't so suitable for YouTube, we'll be adding them up on Patreon. So if you'd like to check any of that out, the support really does help us keep working and keep doing this for a job producing videos for you. And we really appreciate it. And on the list of people we appreciate, we have this week the last of the giant name callouts. That's right, we're catching up. So thank you to Pasito, Michael Turner, Kingsley Newman, Benjo, Jono, Sir Mark Bate, Electro Procte, Justin Von Besser, BPC 952, Garrett Brennan, Justin Hoon, Trent Bartley, Lachlan Grierson, Leif Thorson, Sis, Chris Weaver, Jacqueline Montgomery, TJ Bossolo, Peter Fontebasso, A Bray of Cats, Archie Cameron, Dan S., Doubting Dice, Apetala, Gordon Fenton, James Rode, Bruce Sullivan, Ari Orison, Justin Foreman, Full Grimace, Charlie Joseph, Alex Ravioli, Nikki, Nerds with Friends, Tom, Graham Smith, Rage Issues, Josh Mortimer, Shay Wallace, Freedom, Adri Steyer, Wayland Goodliff, Lord Wolfs, Rip Poison Tooth, Pinselnick, Evan Marland House, Nina, Mandy Colby, Chris McCarthy, David Green, Seb Duma Legend 25, Iraz, J. Trent Adams, Cooper, Crafty Kraken, Jacob Ibarra, Dat Sandwich, Sarah, Maxi UK, Skodiak, Jonathan Price, Martin S., Alan Friese, Mr. Hip Filippo, Ryan Lucchesi, Neotina, Xro, Avatar, El Gordo, Mark, Stephen Fricke, Logan Mavity, Edited 09, Minona, Gemma, Tim Rothorse Kid, Abel Duviant, and Billy Cockrell. Thank you so much, everyone. That was a long list of names.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at me finally putting the capstone on an army that I can call 2,000 points, play some games with, and really enjoy. There's even more that I could do in the future, of course, because no Warhammer army is ever truly done, but I am considering the point at which I could proudly enter a tournament or showcase a full army as that point where it's finished. Now it's time for the DLC. I'm actually super stoked with the Lord Celestin on Stardrake. He's going to be awesome, but it's just too big a process to include in this video as well. I didn't realize how hard it would be to kit bash that. So I'm really excited to build that up too, and that's my next project for this army. This might be the last time you see my Twilight Sentinels for a little while on the channel as we move on to other things, but it's been great, and these are fantastic new models, so thank you again to Games Workshop for sending them in. All of you have a great week, and we'll see you next week in like a day. I'm gonna go play Mordheim with Trent, so it's PAX this weekend.